Discover the incredible journey of a billionaire prince who exposed his true self for lasting love. Jake Barrett wiped his brow, the sun shining on his oil-stained hands as he tightened the last bolt on a rusty pickup truck. In Maplewood, life was simple, but each day felt like a relentless uphill battle. Between the never-ending bills and caring for his ailing father, Jake yearned for a life where he could breathe easy, with his dream of opening an automotive shop often seeming like a distant mirage. But that all changed on a sun-drenched afternoon when a sleek, silver sports car rolled into town. The townsfolk gawked as Amir stepped out. His designer clothes contrasted sharply with the faded jeans and flannel shirts that filled the diner. A prince? In Maplewood? It was a tale too wild to fathom. But he had more to share than just his wealth. Over lunch at the local diner, Jake served Amir a burger and fries, curious eyes glued to the stranger. They talked, their laughter drowning out whispers of skepticism from the onlookers. Amir, with a warm smile, shared the weight of his identity. Behind the prince facade lay a man stifled by royal expectations, longing for freedom and authenticity. Jake felt a kinship in their struggles, the challenges of carving their own path amid pressures from family and community. Sometimes, it feels like wealth is a cage, Amir confessed, stirring his soda with empty thoughts. Jake nodded, feeling a tightness in his chest as he understood every word. As they bonded over dreams and ambitions, they forged an unexpected friendship, igniting a spark of hope that they could break free from their circumstances, but with that bond came stares and whispers. The people of Maplewood were wary, dismissing Amir as just a rich outsider, out of touch with their way of life. Jake tried to ignore the murmurs, but they pricked at him as surely as the summer heat. Just when things seemed to settle, new feelings rushed in. Amir found himself drawn to Emma, the waitress at the diner. Her laughter filled the room each day, hiding a past of her own struggles. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Amir took a step toward Emma, entwining his arm with hers in the bustling diner, the town erupted. The class divide felt insurmountable as Jake stood by, torn between old friendships and newfound loyalties. Rumors swirled like a summer storm, and a scandal involving Amir's family pushed him further into the town's judgmental crosshairs. In this moment, everything felt fragile. Jake wondered if love could withstand the storms of prejudice. As whispers grew louder and tension soared, Amir faced a choice. Would he hide behind his wealth or embrace the love that was blooming around him? Jake watched, heart racing, knowing their lives were forever altered in this tight-knit community. Would they find the courage to defy expectations, or were they destined to remain shackled by the weight of judgment? As Amir prepared to reveal his true self, the air thickened with uncertainty, and Jake knew that the answer would change everything. The diner felt like a pressure cooker, the heat simmering as tension thickened in the air. Jake leaned against the counter, watching the scene unfold. Amir stood beside Emma, his eyes warm but troubled. As murmurs of disbelief grew louder from the surrounding tables, Jake felt a storm brewing in his chest. Was this what friendship meant? Was he meant to stand by while his buddy was put on display like some circus act? Emma's laughter faded into a hesitant smile as Amir took a step away from her. The air crackled with unspoken words. Emma, he started, his voice steady despite the situation, I want to be real with you and everyone here. The townsfolk held their breath, eyeing Amir as if he might sprout wings and fly away. Jake felt a surge of protectiveness. This town had never been kind to outsiders, and Amir was on the brink of becoming their target. You don't have to do this, Jake whispered, feeling the vibrations of the moment ripple through him, but Amir was already moving forward, determination etched on his face. I'm not just a prince, he continued, his voice carrying across the diner. I'm a man who wants to connect even if that means facing the fires of judgment. The words fell heavy, igniting the darkness behind the light in the room. Jake held his breath, remembering his own struggles back home. The loss, the fight to find belonging, the disappointment of harboring dreams in a place that barely understood them. Those thoughts crashed over him as he observed Amir, feeling the rush of solidarity swell inside. Emma stepped closer, her blue eyes sparkling with empathy and something deeper. "We see you, Amir. Not just the prince, but the person," she said, her voice ringing with strength. That simple affirmation was enough to invite a murmur of surprise from the other patrons. Jake's heart raced. Was it possible that the tides were shifting? But not everyone was ready to embrace change. From the back, a gruff voice broke through the uncertain silence. "You think you can just waltz in here and take what's ours?" Old Man Gregory, a known voice of stubbornness in the town, poked the bear with his words. "What do you know about hard work or true sacrifice?" Amir's posture stiffened, but he didn't falter. "I know about running away from expectations that feel suffocating," he replied, his tone rich with conviction. "I know what it feels like to be torn between duty and desire." Jake felt a flash of admiration for Amir. Each word felt like a duel, but a part of him caught the way the diner's atmosphere shifted. Some patrons leaned in, their interest piqued. Others squirmed, grappling with their own prejudices. As the tension hung thickly, Jake's gaze shifted to Emma, who now placed her hand over Amir's. The gesture was small yet monumental. It spoke volumes to those who had come to witness the clash of worlds. "Amir's just trying to be honest," she said quietly, her voice imbued with a gentle ferocity. "Isn't that what we all want? To be seen for who we truly are?" Jake's heart fluttered. He thought of his own dreams, long buried. If Amir could stand against the tide, perhaps he could too. Maybe this was the moment to finally fight for his own future, not just as someone's son, but as a man ready to embrace the life he craved. But just as hope ignited, an ominous silence fell, the kind that foreshadows a storm. How would the town react to this new alliance? Would they join in solidarity, or would they band together to defend their territory, pushing Amir and Emma away? Jake's stomach knotted as he realized that this was just the beginning. The choices they faced wouldn't just shape their lives, they would redefine the very fabric of Maplewood itself. What would the town choose? And more importantly, what would Jake choose when the time came to stand up? As the eyes of the diner turned toward him, the weight of that decision loomed large. A hush blanketed the diner, thickening the atmosphere like fog rolling in off the coast. Jake felt the weight of every gaze pressing against him. He was poised on the precipice of a decision that could alter the trajectory of his life and perhaps that of Amir and Emma too. Old Man Gregory's gruff voice still echoed in Jake's ears. "You think you can just waltz in here and take what's ours?" The challenge was unambiguous, as heavy as the coffee mugs clutched in nervous hands. Jake's pulse quickened. He could feel the diner's eyes moving from Amir to Emma, then finally landing on him, waiting expecting. In that heated moment, he realized something fundamental. Standing up for his friends could mean standing against everything this town thought it knew. His voice broke through the silence, unexpectedly firm. "What do any of us really know about sacrifice?" The words tumbled out like an unwelcome torrent. Amir left everything he knew behind to discover what it means to truly live. He saw Emma's eyes widen, a flicker of pride igniting her expression. Old Man Gregory sneered, but there was unease in his posture. "And what do you stand to gain, Jake? A friendship? A misguided sense of honor?" Jake's heart raced as he pressed on. Maybe it's not about gaining anything. Maybe it's about becoming something, the kind of person who isn't afraid to embrace the unknown. Isn't that the journey we all crave? The clinks of silverware fell still. Slowly, heads began to nod. Some patrons seemed to soften, grappling with the truth in his words. It felt like tipping a domino. They all had to choose which way to fall. Emma squeezed Amir's hand tighter, her voice steady and unwavering. "All we want is a chance to be seen, a chance to connect. Why can't we extend that to everyone in this room?" It was a simple ask, yet the room quivered with the enormity of those words. Jake took a step forward, emboldened. "We all carry a part of ourselves that we hide away, that we're afraid to show. But what would happen if we let the light in?" Murmurs erupted across the diner. Some patrons shifted uncomfortably, while others appeared contemplative, a hint of understanding emerging in their eyes. And then, unexpectedly, someone from the far corner spoke up. "Remember when Katie moved back from the city? They treated her like an outcast, and she only wanted to feel at home." Another chipped in. "Yeah, we judged her too quickly. It was only once she opened up that we realized she's just like us." The realization rippled through the crowd, growing louder, crescendoing like a summer storm. More voices joined, narratives woven together as the diners began challenging their own myths. But there were still holdouts, those unwilling to rethink their stance. Jake felt a mix of hope and frustration. Would this newfound understanding hold? As Amir turned to Jake, there was a flicker of gratitude in his eyes, transformative as sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "I can't thank you enough, my friend," he said, voice heavy with promise. "No matter what happens here, you've shown me that courage still exists in these walls." Then silence again. A profound moment settled over the diner, thick yet electric. But Jake was left with the nagging fear that they were still one vote away from a dark turn. They still had a path to navigate, and he wondered, what if the choice was made to exclude them in the end? As Jake stood there, wrestling with possibility and dread, he couldn't help but wonder, would the town rise together, or would they fracture under the pressure of change? The eyes of Maplewood were upon him, and so was the weight of destiny. Could they truly rewrite their story? Or would history repeat itself, locking them in the cages of fear and prejudice? Those questions hung palpably in the air, begging for answers, but only time would reveal the truth. The diner was wrapped in a tense silence, broken only by the clatter of dishes and the faint hum of the old jukebox in the corner, now forgotten. Jake searched the faces around him, the mix of anxiety and curiosity palpable in the air. He could see old Mrs. Jenkins, usually so quick with her sharp remarks, now staring into her half-eaten pie, lost in thought. The line between fear and empathy had blurred, and he felt the weight of that shift like a living thing, pressing down on him. Old man Gregory shifted in his seat, the grizzled lines of his face etched deeper with frustration. "You think you can just stand up here and spout off, kid? You're making it worse," he barked, attempting to regain control. But Jake could sense the cracks forming in Gregory's resolve, the slightest tremor in his voice. "No, sir," Jake responded, his heart pounding. "I believe I'm trying to make it better for all of us." There was a fire in his belly now, an urge to keep the momentum going. It felt almost reckless, but he couldn't let this chance slip away. Emma's hand tightened around Amir's as she chimed in. "Change is scary for everyone. We all have our fears. But if we don't confront them together, how can we hope to grow?" Her voice rang with clarity, drawing the attention of other patrons. She was shining a light on what linked them, rather than what set them apart. A mom at the other table nodded vigorously. "I remember when my husband lost his job. We were scared to ask for help. But once I spoke up, people came together." She glanced at the menacing old man at the bar. "That's what we need. Help from each other." Encouraged, Jake pressed forward. "This isn't just about Amir or Emma. It's about all of us, about breaking down these walls we've built. What if we stopped judging the unknown and started celebrating it instead?" His words lingered in the air, charged with something unspoken. Suddenly, the door jangled open, and everyone turned. The newcomers were a small group of young adults, people Jake recognized, former classmates of Emma's. Their expressions were filled with uncertainty, brows knitted together apprehensively as they cautiously stepped inside. "Are we too late?" one of them asked, glancing around the diner at the sea of eyes. The newcomer sheepishly added, "We heard talking and we just wanted to be part of it." The vulnerability in their voice struck a chord in the room. Jake felt a surge of hope. "You're just in time," he called out, beckoning them to join. "We're talking about making this place better for everyone." Old man Gregory's face twisted into a scowl, but there were murmurs around him, some patrons visibly softening. The tide was turning, and Jake could feel it. "All right," Gregory finally thundered, "I want to hear from you, then. Let us hear what you have to say." There was a challenge in his tone, but unmistakable fatigue clung to his words. A shift had begun, and the old man could sense it. As the newcomers found their seats, conversations buzzed around Jake. Stories and experiences were exchanged, each one revealing shared humanity. Laughter broke the tension, an unexpected balm. Jake witnessed camaraderie taking root. But with every ripple of connection, a shadow loomed in the background. Jake's resolve mingled with worry. What if the change was too abrupt? What if the comfort of long-standing habits proved too powerful? And then, amidst the chaotic chatter, one bold voice cut through. What's the first step, then? How do we start this change? It was a young man, uncertain yet determined. The room hushed again, all eyes on Jake. The question hung there, threaded with expectation. In that moment, Jake realized they weren't just talking anymore, they were standing at a crossroads. Would they leap into the unknown together? Or let fear dictate their path? Jake took a breath, feeling the weight of the decision before them all, and with it, he understood the truth. Change was too easy, but it started with this very moment, and it was up to them to determine what happens next. Could courage become their greatest ally? Would they transcend their fears or let them trap them once more? Jake stood there, feeling the energy of the room shift. Every pair of eyes was locked on him, waiting, as if expecting him to conjure a way forward. The weight of their anticipation felt almost unbearable. He opened his mouth, searching for the right words, when Emma squeezed Amir's hand tighter, as if drawing strength from her partner. Maybe the first step, he started slowly, is simply to listen. To take the time to hear each other. The group exchanged glances, some nodding, while others looked skeptical, as if grappling with the concept of truly opening up. Old man Gregory leaned back in his chair, arms crossed tightly, still wary but undeniably drawn into the conversation. Jake continued, growing bolder. What if we created a space here, weekly meetings or a community board, where everyone can share their thoughts, experiences, and even fears? He could feel a ripple of intrigue spread through the diner, the pulse of possibility beginning to beat. That sounds optimistic, one of the newcomers, a young woman with glasses, said tentatively. But what if it turns into a place for arguing instead of listening? That's a risk we have to take, Jake replied, his voice stronger now. We can't be afraid of disagreement, it's part of growing. But if we're willing to listen, we'll start seeing each other as people, not just labels. A murmur of agreement followed, and Jake noticed Mrs. Jenkins finally lift her gaze. There was a flicker of curiosity in her eyes, a breaking past something that had long held her back. Behind her, several patrons shifted closer, drawn by the emerging dialogue. Old man Gregory shifted again, his stern face revealing a hint of contemplation. I've seen plenty of lost causes, he grumbled, his tone softened by something almost resembling hope. But if you really think we can change this place, maybe I can help. I can set up a few early morning gatherings, get some folks talking. See? Jake grinned, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. That's exactly what we need. Everyone has a role to play. We're stronger together. The chatter grew more animated, bursting with shared ideas and enthusiasm. A sense of belonging began to coat the diner like a warm blanket, inviting everyone to partake. Laughter mingled with tentative laughter, and Jake felt a surge of energy jump inside him. Yet, a flicker of anxiety still lingered in the back of his mind. Change was messy, unpredictable. Would everyone truly trust one another? Would the fire they ignited maintain its warmth, or would it flicker out under pressure? Emma's voice pulled him back into the moment. I really believe we can make this work, she said firmly, her eyes shining. But let us commit to being honest and open. It's not just about sharing, it's about really hearing one another. Jake nodded, struck by her sentiment. Exactly. We can all have our struggles, but that doesn't make us enemies. Sharing our stories makes us family. There was a spark of recognition that seemed to pass through the diner, igniting a fervor for connection. But just as the energy surged, the front door swung open suddenly, causing everyone to look up sharply. Their small bubble of hope shifted as a stranger stepped in. The newcomer's hardened expression drew attention, and a stark silence fell. "What is going on in here?" he demanded, scanning the crowd. Disruption radiated off of him, threatening to shatter the fragile unity they had just begun to weave. Jake's heart raced again as uncertainty loomed and the warmth of hope wavered. Who was this person? And what did he want from them? As the stranger walked further in, all eyes turned to Jake once more. Would he rise to the occasion again, or would fear dismantle the progress they'd made? The question hung thick in the air, waiting to be answered. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the collective concern of the diner wrap around him like a thick fog. This was an inflection point, a moment that could go either way. He glanced nervously at Emma, her expression a mixture of trust and urgency. The bewildered patrons shifted, some clenching their fists, others fidgeting in their seats. Just he began, his voice steadying. "We're talking about ways to connect, to become a community that listens to each other. That's all." As he spoke, he noticed a flicker of interest spark in the stranger's eyes, but it didn't eradicate the tension. "Listen?" The stranger scoffed, arms folded across his chest as if to shield himself from the idea. "Why not just shout louder? Seems like everyone's just brimming with complaints these days." Jake's pulse quickened, but he stood taller, a resolve building in him. "It's not about shouting. It's about understanding each other. What matters to you? What brings you here?" The stranger raised an eyebrow, surprised, but held his ground. "I came in for breakfast, not to join a therapy session." He scanned the diner, his gaze landing on Mrs. Jenkins, who quickly looked away, her past haunting her like a shadow. "Maybe that's the issue," Jake pressed on, ignoring the stranger's dismissive tone. "We've all been coming to this same place and somehow still feel alone. What if we took a moment to share our stories over pancakes instead of sitting in silence?" Around the diner, the atmosphere began to shift just slightly. Jake could see some patrons lean forward, curiosity taking root. Old man Gregory grunted, and even the woman with glasses adjusted her glasses as if pondering the possibility. "You think that's gonna fix everything?" the stranger shot back, disbelief etched on his face. "In a way, yes," Jake replied, his heart pounding. "Every journey starts somewhere. If we don't try, we're choosing to remain stuck." The stranger hesitated. There was an unfurling moment in his demeanor, perhaps a hint of something buried deep within, a flicker of vulnerability. It was brief, but Jake caught it. The stranger unfolded his arms, glancing back at the patrons, before finally letting out a frustrated breath. "Fine. Let's say I'm interested. What's the next move?" A ripple of surprise swept through the diner. Jake's heart surged again, buoyed by the unexpected turn. "Let's meet weekly, just like I mentioned. We can set up themes, share backgrounds. We'll start with warm-up simple questions that need no pressure. Then we move deeper." Emma nodded, her enthusiasm sparking with vibrant hope. "Exactly. Everyone can share what they love, what they fear. It might help us find common ground." Old man Gregory chimed in with surprising firmness. "I'm in. Better than arguing over coffee. Maybe I can even bring some of my old friends, if they listen." The tension in the room unraveled just a bit more. Patrons glanced at each other, uncertainty giving way to a budding curiosity. "Count me out of the lovey-dovey stuff," the stranger grumbled, but there was something softer in his voice now. But Jake's attention sharpened. "But what? You want to be a part of this or not?" The stranger hesitated, clearly battling some internal struggle. "I guess I can tolerate it." The warmth of shared laughter began to weave through the diner again, pushing the barriers of discomfort back a moment. Just as Jake felt the energy shifting positively, the stranger's gaze met his raw, guarded, and for the first time, human. "Fine, I'll come," he said, his voice low but laced with reluctant acceptance. "But if it gets too mushy, I'm walking out." The crowd chuckled, the ice shattering. Hope radiated through the diner again, but as the chatter swelled, Jake felt a fresh wave of uncertainty. Did they have what it took to open up? Was this fragile trust really enough? And what if the stranger's presence became part of a larger challenge they were yet to face? As the conversation buzzed and laughter rose, the door swung open for a second time. This time, the figure cast a long shadow as he stood just outside the threshold, obscured by the bright morning sun pouring in. Jake's heart sank, sensing all eyes returning to the doorway. Who else was out there ready to challenge everything they had just begun to build? The figure at the door stepped into the diner, briefly blocking the sunlight that filled the room before letting it spill onto the worn linoleum once more. Anxiety rippled through the patrons as they squinted, trying to make sense of the newcomer. Jake's eyes widened. It was a young woman, her face lit up with the kind of excitement that turned heads. She had chestnut hair flowing over her shoulders and a radiant smile that sparkled like the sunlight behind her. But as he studied her further, he noticed the slight tremor in her hands. She clutched a tattered notebook tightly, almost as if it were a shield. "Hi, everyone. I'm Lily," she exclaimed, her voice vibrant, battling the thick tension in the air. The surprise of her entrance shattered the collective focus on the stranger. Lily's energy seemed infectious, coaxing small smiles from even the most reticent. "I can't believe I found you all here. I heard about this place, and I just had to check it out." This isn't exactly a social club, you know," the stranger muttered under his breath, eyes darting back to Jake. Jake felt his heart race again. "It's becoming one," he answered firmly, gathering resolve from Lily's presence. "What do you mean?" she asked, tilting her head curiously. "We're trying to connect, to share our stories," Jake replied, looking around the room. "Even if that means stepping outside our comfort zones." Lily's expression shifted from confusion to interest. "Wow, that sounds amazing. I've always thought that sharing our stories could help heal." For a brief moment, it felt as if the clouds of doubt hanging over the diner were starting to lift. Old Man Gregory leaned in, surprising everyone. "You're right, it could. We've all been through our own battles. I'm a veteran, and sometimes I feel like I fought for nothing because we just sit here silent." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Jake felt the momentum begin to shift. Maybe this was at the turning point. Lily stepped further into the diner, her eyes sparkling with a mix of determination and vulnerability. "I lost my father last year. He would share stories with anyone who would listen. It's what kept him going, what held our family together. We forgot how to talk to each other, and maybe that's why I'm here." Jake felt an unexpected tug at his heart. "Thank you for sharing that," he said softly. "It takes courage to open up. I just wish I had a place to really connect with people, to hear their stories," Lily replied, the weight of her honesty settling in the air. The stranger, who had been rolling his eyes, looked again at Lily. There was something disarmed about her pleading sincerity that seemed to crack his tough exterior. "So, this is your plan? To gather all the emotional people and sing Kumbaya while sharing sad stories?" Lily smiled, undeterred. "If that's what it takes to connect, then yes." Jake held his breath, aware that they were stepping onto fragile ground. Would the stranger be the bridge they needed, or the one to burn the connections they were trying so hard to forge? As the conversation continued, the emotions swelled, laughter mingling with stories of heartache and healing. But the tension remained just beneath the surface. Jake sensed that while they were on the verge of something great, one wrong move could tip the balance back to chaos. "Anyone can get stuck in their world," the stranger said slowly, catching everyone off guard. "But I guess it takes guts to break out of it. What if?" Jake leaned in, heart racing, waiting for the stranger to reveal something profound. Would this be the moment they either moved forward together or fell apart entirely? The stranger paused, his eyes scanning the room, weighing his words carefully. "What if we committed to telling our stories? Not just the easy parts, but the stuff that hurts? That could really change things." Silence wrapped around them, enveloping each patron in thought. Jake felt the tension from moments ago, fraying into something more manageable, an openness seeping in. Lily's surprise evolved into eager anticipation, her eyes bright and wide. "I love that idea. It's so real and raw. It could help us all feel less alone." Old Man Gregory nodded slowly, his weathered face lighting up. You mean to say we take turns? Share what really matters. Not just chit-chat. The stranger shrugged, leaning back as if trying to gauge their reactions. Exactly. It's one thing to share a laugh over coffee, but real healing comes when we get to the heart of it. The weight of his statement hung heavy in the air, as if they were on the edge of some great revelation. Jake felt a swell of courage. Was this truly the moment they could transform their painful silence into connections that could last? Then let us begin, Jake urged, glancing at Lily, who beamed with excitement. I can start. I've had my own demons to deal with. 3 years ago, I lost my mother to an illness. It shattered my world. I didn't just lose her, I lost my way. The words poured out, raw and unfiltered. Jake spoke of the burdens he carried, the days spent in despair, questioning everything he once believed. The diner became a chamber of empathy. He looked around, meeting the eyes of the patrons, finding understanding in their gazes. Lily leaned in, clutching her notebook as if it were a lifeline. Thank you, Jake. That really resonates with me. I often feel lost without my dad. Sometimes I wonder if I'll find my way back to joy. A few patrons nodded in silent acknowledgement of Lily's pain, their faces softening. The stranger shifted, seemingly less hostile now, and, for the first time, shared a piece of his story. I grew up with a father who never thought I'd be enough. I fought myself for years, trying to prove him wrong. That pressure had almost crushed me. Jake's heart raced. This was how they could move forward. Each confession pulled them closer together, like invisible threads weaving their stories into a fragile tapestry. Connection is what we're missing, Lily said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Stories can heal. They remind us of our shared humanity, even the mess. The air buzzed with newfound energy, vulnerability hung in the balance, potent and electrifying. The diner transformed from a place of retreat into a sanctuary of understanding. As each person shared, laughter occasionally broke through the weightiness. They were finding solace together, becoming a strange little family bound by their struggles. Jake felt layers of isolation melt away. Every story was a thread pulling them closer, but just then, a loud crash echoed as the diner door swung wide open again. It was a familiar face, one that had been absent from their lives for too long. A wave of anxiety rippled through the group, interrupting the burgeoning intimacy they'd begun to weave. Get ready to go, the newcomer barked, eyes scanning the room. Things are about to change, and not everyone is ready for it. Jake felt the exhaustion wash over him, battling against the excitement of connection they had just built. In a heartbeat, everything felt poised to shift dramatically. Would they be able to hold on to the fragile connections they had made, or was chaos about to descend? With his heart pounding, Jake turned to the group, eyes wide with uncertainty. What would this mean for their newfound courage? What was coming next? Jake's breath caught in his throat. The air thinned as tension returned, slicing through the bond they had just begun to form. Every face in the diner turned toward the newcomer, a mix of fear and curiosity etched on their features. He stood there in the doorway, a silhouette against the glow of the streetlights outside. The moment felt electric, charged with potential, yet heavy with unease. Who are you? Lily's voice trembled slightly as she stepped forward a bit, instinctively protective of the newfound circle. Name's Thomas, the man replied, stepping into the light and revealing a face lined with worry, though there was a hard edge in his eyes. We don't have time for pleasantries. The town has a storm coming, and I don't mean the weather. I'm not sure how else to say this, but they're onto us. Jake stared at Thomas, scanning his features for a hint of deception but only finding seriousness. The group had barely connected, and now it felt as though they were teetering on a precipice, ready to plunge into uncertainty. What do you mean, they're onto us? Jake asked, the tremor in his voice betraying his attempt at calm. Thomas took a deep breath. The ones who run this town, they don't tolerate weakness. They hear whispers of gatherings like this, where people share their truths, and they don't like it. They thrive on control, and when they feel that slipping away, they lash out. I don't want you all to get caught up in it. The stranger's words hung in the air, wrapping around the group with a chilling grip. As the initial shock began to fade, Jake felt something shift within him. The weight of his own story was still fresh, but mingled with the concern for his newfound companions. They had bonded over pain, and now that bond felt threatened. What do we do? Gregory, the oldest among them, asked, his voice steady despite the concern in his eyes. The old man's wisdom shone through as he sought clarity in chaos. Thomas glanced around the room. We can't let fear dictate our lives. Sharing stories is our strength. You have to keep doing this, keep gathering, but be careful. It's vital that you trust each other and stay united. For a moment, the buzzing energy shifted again, bringing a blend of resolve into the room. Jake could feel the collective heartbeat of the group building, as if they became a singular entity bent against the tides of fear. Then we stay together, Lily declared, her gaze unwavering as she looked around at each of them. We're not going to stop sharing. Not now. Not ever. That's not just important for us, it's important for everyone who feels alone. Old man Gregory nodded, his eyes sparkling with determination. We keep gathering our stories. We raise our voices. And let the storm come. Jake felt his pulse quicken, not with fear, but with a touch of defiance. Together, they were stronger. 6 strangers became comrades, ready to face whatever the world threw their way. Just as the tension began to ease, Thomas fixed his gaze on Jake. You have to prepare yourself. They won't play fair. If we want to protect this family you're building, we might need an ally from the inside. What do you mean? Jake asked, feeling the shadow of uncertainty loom once more. A smirk crept onto Thomas's lips, revealing more than just good intentions. I know someone who understands the inner workings of this town. But getting them to help us might be a challenge. It will require trust and sacrifices. You in? Jake's heart raced. He could feel the weight of their stories behind him and the heaviness of what lay ahead. But as he looked into Lily's eyes, into Gregory's wistful glance, he knew there was no turning back now. Yeah, he replied firmly, determination rising. I'm in. We're in. As the diner filled with murmurs of agreement, the gravity of their situation settled around them like a dark cloak. They were standing at the precipice of something much larger than themselves. Jake felt the thrill of the unknown take hold, and he wondered, would they be able to secure their place in a community that felt threatened by their very existence? And just as they considered their next steps, the diner's door swung open again, this time revealing someone else entirely. A figure from Jake's past, one he thought he'd never see again, trouble embodied. What could they possibly want? Jake felt his heart clench as the familiar figure stepped into the diner. It was Benny, a former friend turned adversary from his high school days, known for his reckless spirit and penchant for stirring up trouble. Benny's wide grin was at odds with the job of protecting their newfound unity. Look what the cat dragged in. Benny exclaimed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. I heard you all were having a little powwow. Thought I'd see what the fuss was about. Not now, Benny, Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. Memories flooded in fights, betrayals, the rift that came between them. But Benny's eyes flickered with mischief as he surveyed the crowd. What's this? A bunch of dreamers talking about feelings and community? You really think that's gonna change anything? Jake held his breath, feeling the tension spike again. The fragile connections built over laughter and shared pain now felt at risk. Change requires courage, Benny, Emma spoke up, her voice unwavering. You should know better than anyone that sitting idle only leads to more regret. Benny leaned against the counter, arms crossed, his smirk faltering but still unwavering. Courage? More like a recipe for disaster. You're thinking too much with your hearts and not enough with your heads. Jake didn't back down. We're trying to connect, to share our stories and create a real community, Benny. It's more than just words. You could be part of this if you want to. Benny paused, the bravado momentarily slipping. For a fleeting second, doubt crossed his face. It seemed like he was grappling with the weight of his own history just as much as Jake had. Why should I help you all? Benny shot back, though Jake could see the flicker of interest beneath the bravado. Because in this moment, we're stronger together than apart, Jake replied, glancing around the diner, where nods of agreement began to ripple through the crowd. If we keep fighting each other, we'll tear apart the very fabric of this town. Change is possible when we stand united. Benny scoffed, but there was a hint of hesitation as he took in the resolve surrounding him. Old man Gregory spoke up next, his voice steady and calm. When I came back from war, I thought I'd left my buddies behind. I learned the hard way that a man is only as strong as the people at his side. Maybe it's time you realize that. The air was thick with emotion as Benny seemed to wrestle with the idea. I don't know, he trailed off, uncertainty shrouding his hardened exterior. Look, Jake said, taking a step toward him, I know you've always been tough. But it takes real strength to face the truth and let people in. Let us focus on what we have in common. Benny shifted, glancing around the diner, dodging their gazes. The transformation happening among the townsfolk was palpable, and Jake could see Benny dancing on the edge of realization. You want me to be a part of the Sobfest? Benny shot back, but the bite had left his voice. No, we want you to be a part of something meaningful. Just imagine what we could accomplish as a community. For the first time, Benny faltered, and the weight of vulnerability settled over him like a blanket. He clenched his fists, visibly fighting against something within. I don't belong here, he finally muttered, glancing toward the door as if it were an escape route. You belong where you allow yourself to be, Lily chimed in, her genuine warmth washing over them all. No one is perfect, and we all have baggage. Let us carry it together. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air like fog. No one had ever spoken to Benny this way before. With one last breath, Benny relented. Okay, fine. I'll stick around for a bit. But don't think I'm all in or something. Jake felt relief wash over him, the tension dissipating. That's all we need, he said, a smile breaking through. Just take it one step at a time. Benny slouched, but a hint of a smile crept onto his face, mingling with the understanding brewing among the diners. Old man Gregory offered a weathered grin. A step forward is still progress. As they resumed the conversations, laughter began to flow back into the air like an old song. In that moment, each of them, despite their struggles, showed strength in vulnerability. Amid the light-hearted banter and shared stories, Jake felt gratitude swell inside him. They were starting to build something beautiful, relationships laced with empathy and authenticity. He cast a glance around the diner, taking in the faces of new friends, a community reshaped by shared pain and healing. In the corner of the room, Amir surveyed the scene, a proud smile resting on his lips. Love blossomed in unexpected places. Together? Jake said, raising a glass of iced tea, the room gradually falling silent again. Together. Echoed the others, the roar of unity spiraling up toward the rafters, enveloping them in warmth. Inside the diner, they were rewriting their story. A family was forming, one that embraced imperfections, faced fears, and connected through love. Their journey for healing had just begun, but they stood ready together, prepared to face whatever the future brought with courage, love, and the bonds of community forging their paths ahead. And with that, Jake beamed, thinking to himself, they had the chance to change Maplewood, and it started right there, in a worn little diner filled with hope. Yes, they could do this. Join the movement, embrace your own story, and connect like never before. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories of transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, making sure others find the inspiration too. Don't keep your feelings bottled up. Comment below with your reactions about their incredible journey, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let's spread the power of connection.